Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, in which we will be exploring the evolution of alarm management thanks to the introduction of AI and, of course, the ongoing influence of digitalization on industry. And we're also going to have a demonstration of our AI solution that we've been working on here at ProcessView, which was something Janna showed during her last webinar. So we'll be continuing with that narrative today. So my name is James Fox. I'm the head of product strategy here at ProcessView. I've been involved in alarm management for over 25 plus years. And in that time, I've held various commercial and technical roles. Joining me on this webinar is our very own Janna Vint. So if you could introduce yourself, Janna.
Sure. I'm Janna, and I am an alarm management consultant supporting the North America region. My background is process control systems engineering, specifically within the oil and gas industry. So for the first few years of my career, I led global alarm management initiatives, and then I moved on to support site-specific operations before ultimately joining ProcessView. Back over to you, James.
Thanks, Janna. So here at ProcessView, we've been helping customers regain control of their alarm systems, and we've also been enhancing the governance and management of those systems with our customers. Throughout that time, we've had the privilege of working with leading companies across multiple industries. Now, obviously, when I talk about leading, I'm actually talking about top performers within their chosen industry. And this has allowed us to witness the evolution of alarm management from a first-hand perspective. Alarm management has evolved over the past decade, especially in the context of ISA 18.2 compliance and industrial automation. Alarms were primarily treated as a compliance issue. And of course, the task was to capture, rationalize, and document alarms well enough to satisfy standards and audits, particularly following frameworks such as ISA 18.2 and EMEA 191, which of course establishes best practices for alarm systems. Now, that was important work, but it always felt like alarms had more to give than just being a regulatory checkbox. And here at ProcessView, our intent has always been to help organizations get more value from their alarm data than what they previously thought they could. And over the last 10 years, we've introduced several products to help customers manage their alarm challenges. With Guardian, Analyzer, and Sequence, we've laid the foundation or the groundwork for what we now call alarm intelligence, which is essentially a mindset and an approach that repositions alarm management as a foundation for operational insight. Now, Janet, you've got a lot of experience in your current role and through your previous role. How have you seen alarm management evolve?
Yeah, so I've been involved in the alarm management process control space for nearly a decade, and I think it's exactly what you're saying. I've seen that shift where historically alarm management is viewed as this frontline defense against incidents, and so it's often associated with things such as safety, compliance, quality, and reliability. And so, just as you had mentioned, unfortunately for many people, it's just a box to check or a cost to be compliant. But I think as that frontline defense, the alarm data can be rich in information. And so I think as people and companies shift their mindset and become more open to the benefit of new technologies, they're starting to realize that there's potential value that that rich alarm data can provide. But I think the question is, how do we leverage that? And James, maybe you can touch on that by explaining a bit more about the products.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jenna. So our product suite currently looks as follows. We've got ProcessView Sequence, which is an alarm historian, which allows us to capture alarms and events, add rich contextual information to those alarms and events, and display them in a unified manner. We've then got ProcessView Analyzer, which allows us to manage alarm floods and identify nuisance alarms, such as chattering and fleeting alarms. And it also allows us to measure things like operator responses in response to the alarm load that they're experiencing. It also allows customers to demonstrate varying levels of compliance to, of course, the alarm management standards and guidelines. Then, of course, we've got Process View Guardian, which is our master alarm database and alarm governance platform, which takes one-off rationalizations and turns them into standards-aligned workflows and processes.
Yeah, thanks for that overview. I think to summarize, Process View provides a full alarm system governance lifecycle layer that sits above the control, SCADA, DCS systems, and it enforces consistency, catches drift, and enables insights. And so you can sort of think of it as a building or a structure with three strong support pillars. Your first is sequence, which contains your raw, unified, and contextualized data. The second pillar, analyzer, contains the analytics data, so your alarm floods, operator response times, KPI data. And finally, you have Guardian, which is the master alarm database, MOC, and audit trail. So when you consider each of the individual pillars and the amount of data and variety that is being collected, it's really rich foundation on which to build. But what would that building be without a roof to unify those pillars and tie everything together? And so when you add AI to that rich data foundation, we have the potential to transform the way alarm management is performed. So we can provide new insights into alarms and their behavior along with recommendations. We can empower and guide operators, providing them with the right information at the right time. We can create emergent analysis or situational reporting, so there's no need to have development spend weeks trying to generate a report. You can just do it on demand whenever a situation arises. So it enables us to close the loop on alarm management issues because AI allows us to measure it, manage it, and make it better. And so these are just a few small examples of the benefits that AI-empowered alarm management applications can provide. But the reality is that it's bringing benefit to your engineers, your operators, your managers, every one of the roles who are touched by alarm management. So now let's shift focus. And James, can you tell us how Process View is incorporating AI?
Yeah, of course, Janet. So here at Process View, we're far along in development of integrating LLM chatbot into Process View. We're going to be integrating a chatbot into both Process View Analyzer and Process View Guardian web clients. And you can think of it as like having an alarm management expert on call 24/7. It understands alarms, it understands the alarm management standards and guidelines. And it's going to be able to empower operators and engineers providing insight into your alarms through natural language. So, for example, if I was an operator and I'm on shift and I see an alarm that I'm not familiar with, I'll be able to just ask the chatbot and say, hey, I've not seen this alarm before. How should I respond to it? And the chatbot will provide the required response in a timely manner. It'll also provide information such as what will happen if they missed the alarm, how long have they got to reply to that particular or respond to that particular alarm. And also if I was an engineer and I was wanting to sort of manage the load of alarms that are put in front of the operators, I may start looking at my top 10 alarms. So I could ask the chatbot and say, what are my top 10 alarms for today? Or we can move it on a step and say, there was an incident last week. I want to understand what the first up alarm was. And the chatbot will go away and provide that information for you to save you having to scroll and investigate through your alarm data. But that's not all we're doing. We're also implementing and developing MCP servers. Now, MCP servers refers to the Model Context Protocol, which is a relatively new standard designed to let AI models like ChatGPT, Claude, or other LLMs securely and intelligently interact with external data, tools, and systems. An MCP server is effectively it's a connector or an interface layer that exposes a specific domain, service, or data set. And it exposes it to an AI model through a structured machine-readable API. So you can think of it as a translator or a gateway between AI and the outside world. So AI speaks the MCP protocol. The MCP server handles the requests, performs the actions and queries, and then sends the responses back to the model in a standardized format. So it basically means that you can work with AI without exposing your database, your permissions, and your schema. Now, the MCP servers will also allow us to play nicely with other industrial ecosystems. So, for example, if you have a SCADA system that has an AI component built into it, and that might have access to process data or equipment data and documentation, etc., well, it can be configured to work with our MCP servers, which will then, of course, allow them to have access to alarms and event related information. And when you bring all of that data set and information together, you've got a really powerful feature set that you can leverage. Now, I could talk for a long time about our AI solution, but it's probably much better if we show you. So I'm going to hand over to Janet, who will give us a walkthrough of our AI solution. Over to you, Janet.
Okay, so before I get into the demo, I just want to preface by saying for this demo, I will be using Claude. And so as James was mentioning, you can think of Claude, if you're not familiar with it, as being similar to, say, like ChatGPT. It's just another LLM AI agent. And so because the MCP servers play nicely with any of those agents or LLMs that have that capability, you can virtually use whichever one you decide, as long as it has the MCP server capability. So in this case, I'll be using Claude, and then it will be talking to Analyzer and Guardian. That the backend is a simulated system that is engineered to reflect and represent alarms and events across multiple industries, as well as real life scenarios of what could happen at a process plant. So your alarm floods, plant upsets, chattering events, all those sorts of things. And so let's get into it. I had mentioned that you could do, or that AI kind of enhances dashboarding and report capabilities. So I want to start by showing this is a standard dashboard that comes with our base analyzer software. And so what we're looking at here is a dashboard with 24 hours of alarm and event data, and it's broken into hourly and 10-minute intervals. And then over here are your ISA 18.2 KPIs. So you're looking at max alarm rate, percent of time above the max target, average alarm rate, active alarms, all that good stuff. So while this is helpful and has great insight, I just want to show you the possibility of how you could kind of create something like this using AI. And so I just prompted it very quickly with create me an ISA 18.2 compliance dashboard. And so first of all, we see a compliancy score at the top. So kind of gathers all of those KPIs and determines how compliant we are. And then it reports the KPIs, some of them which are included in the standard dashboard, but it also provides additional insight that we may not have on a standard dashboard. So your priority one rate, operator load, response time, and then it gives some problem areas, but I want to draw your attention to the standard requirements. So it highlights the ISA 18.2 standard requirements and lists them, and it tells us where our performance is in terms of that. So we can kind of fact check ourselves and see exactly where we are compared to the actual ISA 18.2 requirements. And then it goes a bit further to provide recommended actions so that we can increase that compliancy score and make an improvement of our system.
Sorry, Jana. So this is a great dashboard. As an example, as we can see in the background there, through the background dashboard, we've got those different KPIs that Process View is generating, and then the AI solution has built a dashboard that then encompasses all of those metrics to provide us with an overall compliancy score, which is really useful at a glance information. And I love the way that it presents the actual targets for the requirements for you as well, along with the recommendations. So it's sort of just showing you and demonstrating just a small part of the capabilities in terms of the recommendations that it can provide.
Right. And then it's really useful because you can take a deeper dive into this data. So say, I mean, in this case, our operator load looks good, but say it didn't, and you wanted to investigate that a bit further, then we generated another dashboard that kind of explores that operator wellness. So let me just pull that up really quickly. And so it kind of looks at those ISA 18.2 metrics specifically in terms of the ones that are related to the operator. So your response time, how the operators are responding, how many events they respond to, their total alarms by console or by operator. And then we'll see like a dashboard where it gathers all of that information together and it gives us those metrics and then our analysis period. And then it takes it a step further by sort of inferring based on what it knows of the ISA 18.2 standards and then the actual metrics that it's pulled to kind of describe the wellness of the operator and compare their wellness to other operators. So Michael seems to have a higher workload than Mary or Thomas. And so you can sort of take a deeper dive into that data and see, okay, well, why does Michael have such a heavy workload compared to others? And then sort of start to investigate that. And then it provides key insights. You could dig deeper into some different detailed metrics, such as your alarm bursts, and just some useful insight pertaining to overall operator wellness.
So again, another great dashboard, Janna, that really just provides a good example of its capability to infer information, because we track the priority distribution, the operator acknowledgements, the number of alarms in a 10-minute period, all across these different metrics we're measuring. And the AI solution is able to build up this dashboard and then make inferences based on the number of alarms, how critical they were in terms of priority, to give us an overall wellness indicator of how well that operator is and sort of what kind of cognitive load they're under based on the priorities and the level of alarms.
Right. And
So,
then go ahead. Yeah.
no, I was just going to ask how long it takes to create a dashboard, Janna. So these dashboards that you're showing, how long does it take you to create one of these dashboards in the solution?
That's a good question. So this one, probably 10 minutes. I would say you could, the compliancy assessment, that one I generated on the first prompt. So I just prompted it, create a compliancy dashboard. And so it came up with that in probably 5 minutes. But this one, I had to provide some feedback, ask it to organize things differently. And so you're looking, if you wanted one where you had about 5 versions and it was like completely tailored and customized to exactly what you wanted or needed, you could be looking at like 30 minutes, but you'll have a pretty good basis very quickly.
Okay, thanks for that, Janna. Just to put that in context, we've often been requested by a number of customers over recent years to create custom reports. They liked the different KPIs that we generated throughout different reports and have asked for specific custom reports to be built containing several of those metrics. And ordinarily, it would have taken us sort of 4 weeks to put those dashboards together. They'd have to be designed, developed, tested, and sort of released. So it's sort of 4 weeks roughly worth of work, and we're sort of saying 5 to 10 minutes is first couple of iterations, and you're up and running. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, having been on the engineering side of what you're talking about, I can say, yeah, this is way more efficient. And I was blown away by the kinds of stuff that it can come up with. So I had mentioned also that this AI solution helps provide benefit to multiple roles. So your operators, your engineers, your managers. So I want to show a specific use case where we're helping out the operator. So say the workload is intense, the response times aren't there. How can we add benefit to or help out our operator? And so what this is a dashboard where it's taking data from the analyzer side of things. So it's evaluating how often alarms and events are occurring. And then it's using the tag configuration in Guardian to sort of judge the criticality, priority, response time, just the operator response in general, all of that sort of information to create this suggested list of your most frequent alarms and also the ones that are most critical. Because the idea is that you would have an operator, hopefully they're not getting these critical P1 alarms very often, or ideally they're not. And so they may not be as familiar with how to respond in that scenario. And so in this high pressure situation where they're not familiar with this response or this alarm, then they could either search it or hopefully it's in the suggested list and they could click on this alarm and get the general information on the alarm, the root cause, the consequence if it's ignored, and then the maximum time they have to respond to that alarm. And then it goes through, it pulls the operator response from Guardian and then breaks it up into steps. So the operator could then click through. They know step 1, initiate an emergency shutdown. Step 2, isolate the unit. And then as they're checking these things off, they could click through the response until they have ultimately responded to that alarm, and then they can go back and wait for the next one to come in. So it really helps put the important data or important information in front of the operator in a really organized, easy to read format, to really help improve their efficiency in responding to these alarms.
Yeah, this is another great dashboard, Janna. I love how it takes all of that information stored in the master alarm database and then presents it in this really powerful and user-friendly way. And what strikes me as interesting is that you've sort of got that maximum response time. So typically when an operator gets an alarm, it's got a priority. It could be a high, it could be a medium, it could be a low. But that's pretty much what they get, and they kind of have to work with that kind of priority level. But here, because we've got that kind of information in the master alarm database, you've been able to pull it out as part of the dashboard. So straight away, if I was an operator, I'd say, right, I know it's important, but I've got 5 minutes to respond to that alarm. And I've also got all of the other important information, those critical steps, particularly if it's a rare alarm that I'm not used to seeing.
Yeah, it's very cool. And then the last thing I'll show is I was sort of messing around with the pattern analysis capabilities. And so I wanted to see how it could forecast events based on previous events that had actually occurred. And so in this scenario, I prompted it with, based on my recent alarms from my water connector, the water portion of my database, what can you forecast about my water treatment process? And so it goes through, and so it's getting the alarm messages, the chattering base from my database, most frequent distribution, all that information, and then does this analysis on it. And then it breaks my water treatment process into 4 main areas and then sort of list them based on criticality. So it comes back with a forecast that, okay, in sludge handling, we might see an equipment shut down within 5 to 7 days. And so then the impact of that, the estimated downtime is about 24 to 48 hours. And then it highlights some of those problem areas that we can focus on and look at to investigate why this is being forecasted. And then it goes through and does the other areas. So filtration, we might need to do some PID tuning, and so on through each of the areas. And then chattering alarms, those are great indicators of problem areas because it could indicate unreliable equipment or faulty equipment, as well as unstable areas of the process because the alarms are going in and out very frequently. And so it highlights some of those key chattering alarms and recommends some actions to help reduce those. And then with all those recommendations, it kind of organizes that into a plan, so you know which ones you should tackle first and how to prioritize those. And so this is just forecasting, but I've also done where I do a pattern analysis. It identifies different cascading patterns, and then during a plant upset, and then I say, okay, have you seen these occur before, or this pattern occur before? It says it came back and said, yes, this was your first up alarm. Here's how you can provide warnings in the future, or this, you could change the parameters on this alarm so that you don't really see this scenario again. So it does like predictive analysis and really good pattern analysis. And that's really all I have to show.
Yeah, and another great dashboard. The only thing I was going to add to that, Janna, is that because of the memory, the more you work with it, the more it sort of remembers and brings into your conversations. So we've only really shown a small part of the analytics and the dashboard of what the overall solution is capable. It's literally just the tip of the iceberg. But you can create actions within Guardian, so you can identify problems such as that you see within your top 10, your chatter and your fleeting. And then you can say to AI, you can say, right, create me an action in Guardian so I don't forget about that. I'm gonna give that the responsibility of a guy in maintenance. And so it brings it all together. It unifies all these different data sets and provides real benefits and value. And Yeah, I've been working in alarm management for a long time, and this gets me excited still.
I agree with that.
So, we've looked at the evolution of alarm management thanks to AI and the ongoing digitalization of industry. We've looked at the benefits of applying AI to alarm management and its transformational capabilities. We've looked at the situational dashboarding. You can create these dashboards because you can generate them in sort of 5 minutes. You can create them for different situations. Maybe you're going into a startup of the process or a shutdown, or maybe you've got some problematic equipment. You can really easily create a dashboard to monitor those events so you've got good insights as to what's going off. Now, I have to say, of course, that the analytics capabilities will be dependent on what kind of chatbot you are using with the system. So just bear that in mind. We've also looked at the pattern recognition and recommendation capabilities, and we've also looked at MCP servers that can provide deeper integration into the wider industrial ecosystems. So if you'd like more information on Process View, then please feel free to visit our website, of course, www.processview.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, where we've got a presence, and we've also got a channel on YouTube. On behalf of Janna and myself, just like to say thank you for taking the time to join us on this webinar, and we hope you have a great day. Thank you very much.